My name is Barbie the Welder, and I'm a fine art sculptor, published author of 6 and soon to be 7 books, and an international keynote speaker. I've been featured in advertising campaigns, written articles for major publications, been featured in newspapers, and had articles written about me in several major magazines. And I've also been a character in a game. I've given keynote speeches in 3 countries. I have clients in 15 countries, and my client list is incredible, including Harley Davidson, who I created 2 sculptures for, Baker Beam, who I created 5 sculptures for, and my most recent client was Burger King and DreamWorks for the movie How to Train Your Dragon. But this is not where I started. When I first started out, I was living in the projects and on government subsidized housing, hauling scrap metal for a living 7 days a week, and selling car parts on eBay that I had pulled from our local pick-apart. I sat down with our neighbors one day to watch the movie Castaway starring Tom Hanks. It makes me cheese. And in the beginning of the movie is this woman who is welding these angel wings, and it spoke to my soul. I have no explanation for this, but because I had never welded and I had no artistic talent to speak of other than making box forts. However, I knew I was meant to be a metal sculptor. I saved up and went to our local BOCES and took a 6-month course for adults in how to weld. From there, I got hired at a local custom fabrication shop where I worked for 5 years and learned the art of fabrication and welding. And in that time, I saved up, fixed my credit, purchased a garage that had a house attached to it, and started to go to work at home on nights and weekends, teaching myself, using my fabrication skills, how to create art. The first sculptures I created looked like this, and this, and that. There were no blueprints out there, so the way I created art was by going on Pinterest, looking for metal art that I liked, and then I would reverse engineer how people made it using the fabrication skills that I had gained working at the custom fabrication shop. In time, with lots of practice, I was able to design and create my own metal art. And as I was doing that, because I realized there was no really anything out there to teach, I just started teaching on YouTube. I started creating videos teaching people how to create metal art. I still to this day have over 100 videos on YouTube that you can learn from. Plus 3 of my books will teach you too, step by step. In the beginning, I missed the memo that I was supposed to sell this art. I was drawn to create in a way that I can't even express in words. It was just a soul calling to create art. However, the sales part of it really just fell to the wayside. So here I am making all this art and teaching you how to weld art, but it wasn't really selling. So fast forward a little bit, once I realized oh my gosh, I have to sell this stuff, I started selling by setting up at events and by going to my local craft stores and setting up a little table in there where I would sell a few pieces here and there. And as I was doing that and realizing I needed to sell, I started showcasing what I was doing through my social media channels, starting with Facebook, moving to and YouTube, and then moving to Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So as I moved along, I was gaining a following on social media, which really just took my business and just blew it out of the water. I had no idea what this would turn into when I started. No idea what this would turn into. When I started, my only drive was that I needed to make art, I needed to breathe. However, what it's turned into has been quite magical. So I'm so excited to share with you a little bit more in depth about each step and what you can do personally to learn how to create metal art, and if you want to, how to market it and sell it, and how to build yourself into a brand. So let's get started. So first things first is your workspace. Now, as you heard in the beginning, I did not have a garage to start off with. It took me a couple of years to save up and get one. So if you do have a workspace, you're way ahead of where I was when I started. If you're working at a welding shop, you can talk to your boss about working after work and on your breaks to weld art there. Or you can get yourself 4 weld curtains on frames and set them up in your backyard and create yourself a small area to work in. As a creative person, finding creative solutions is a really great exercise for you to do. It pushes you and it really just helps your creativity. So you just don't need a huge space to create an empire. For your workbench, you can buy one or build one. Built, not bought. You can go to the scrapyard and get a plate of steel and some tube and weld yourself a workbench. Or you can go to a place like Harbor Freight, or they've got them all over online that you can choose from. My first welding bench in my shop was actually, it was like for a sewing machine. It was like this 18 gauge, like super wobbly piece that if I was to push down, it really just sunk in. I mean, we work with what we have, and I think that for me anyway, working from like the bottom of the mountain up, it has given me so much more creativity because I have put myself in a position where I had to figure things out. And when you have to figure things out, I really think it forces that creativity, and I think it's just such good food for our brains. So the next thing I'm going to talk to you about, however, the most important thing that I will talk to you about today is safety. And safety is just so sexy, just saying that like this is the only body you're getting and you must protect it. My recommendation for a weld hood is a name brand weld hood. I don't care what name brand, but one that is one of the highly regarded name brands in the welding community. It is something that you're talking about your eyes, you're like making sure you're not getting flash burn. Please, please, please be safe. Get a high quality weld hood. Make sure that you're using shade 10 or darker. I have mine set on 11. This is the most important thing because without our bodies, we have nothing. Other aspects of safety are, I wear safety glasses underneath my weld hood and I wear earplugs at all times while I'm working in the shop. Your hearing and your vision is not something you can get back. And as you're welding, like sparks can pop up underneath your hood, and having safety glasses on underneath your weld hood gives you an extra layer of protection. And then again, your hearing, please protect yourself as you are creating. As you're working, I need you to have on steel toe boots, jeans without holes in them, and long sleeve shirts. Again, you can get burnt from welding, and gosh, this is your only body. You really want to treasure and protect it. So especially if you are welding online and you are showing other people, by being a good example, by being a good steward for safety, you are helping future generations or generations before you. It doesn't matter that whoever it is, you're just being a good steward for safety. And this just shows everybody it is so important. We never know who we are inspiring as we are creating. In doing any cutting or grinding, on top of wearing safety glasses, I also wear a face shield. And this is to give an extra layer of protection. This is how I make my money. And I just want to protect myself and show other people that it is just so important that they protect themselves. Wearing gloves is another thing. Get yourself a good pair of gloves that fit. If you are looking for any advice on what brands to use, send me a message in the comments and ask about different brands. I've used many brands across my 19 years in welding and fabrication. I have a couple favorites, and especially if you have perfectly average, however, girl size hands, that I have a couple of brands that I absolutely love of gloves that fit me profoundly perfect. If you have long gloves and they're hanging over, this is a safety hazard and something that, I mean, you're talking about irreparable damage you can't undo. Be safe, y'all. All right, getting into what welder to buy. Now, I will give you my experience, however, yours may vary, and the welder that you get will depend on what art that you want to create. And for this one, you might want to think long-term as far as like where you want to take it. However, what I've personally found for myself is that in the beginning, the first welder I got was a Lincoln 140C. It's a 110 MIG welder that you can hook up gas to. And I don't care what brand it is, a MIG welder that you can hook up gas to, I feel like is the most versatile welder when it comes to welding metal art. And if you can't afford like a bunch of stuff, I would go to Harbor Freight, I would get the insurance, and I would get yourself a 110 welder, which means you can plug it into a 110, a regular socket that you can hook gas up to. I recommend a gas welder because for me personally, I have used a flux core welder. It's very smoky and it was very hard for me to see the weld puddle, which made my whole job harder. With a MIG welder, you can weld everything from silverware art to more difficult pieces like this leather jacket behind me. In a air-cooled welder, which is like a basic welder, when you're doing something like this, it is something that you're going to have to allow the welder to cool off. Ask me how I know. The Statue of Liberty welder for the American Welding Society. It took me twice as long because I needed to let the welder cool off. However, you can weld some seriously incredible art and some really simple art, both with a 110 welder that runs on gas. I don't have any favorite brands. I have welded with several different brands and find that with practice and by setting your welder up correctly, that you could pretty much weld anything with it. With this welder, I recommend using an 030 steel wire. It's an ER70S6. And I'm like, if you have questions, go down in the comments and ask. I use the 030, even though the welder is capable of putting an 035, which is a little bit thicker wire, because the 030 actually allows me to weld thicker material with this welder than it is called for. Like the welder has certain parameters. It'll say, oh, it'll weld up to XYZ. I personally have found that is, you can actually go to a thicker material. I have welded 1/4 inch steel with that welder. Because of having a thinner wire, you don't need as much power to melt it. It melts more, and you might have to do a couple of layers. You'll have to do a couple of layers. However, by doing the 030 wire, it allows you to lower melting point and weld thicker material. Again, you will need to take and let your machine cool off. I hit the duty cycle on pretty much everything I've owned. Kind of bragging here, not complaining. If you're just getting started and on a budget, the one piece of equipment after the welder and the safety gear that I would recommend is an angle grinder. An angle grinder is what I personally find the most versatile tool in my shop. You can use a cutoff wheel to cut material. It'll take also a hard stone, sandpaper, or Scotch-Brite pads, and a wire wheel, all allowing you to do pretty much everything you need to do to create metal art, whether it's simple sculptures or more complex. All right, now that you've got your shop set up and you've got your equipment, where do you find inspiration as an artist? Now, this is a deeply personal journey for yourself and myself and pretty much any artist. However, as you heard in the beginning, I went to Pinterest. You can go to the Googles and you can search metal art. You can find easy metal art. And like I said, when I first did it, I was looking at easy metal art, like the horseshoe sculptures for a heart or a 4-leaf clover, really basic stuff where you have to make like a cut and a weld and you've got a sculpture. Now, I've written 3 books and have over 100 videos here on YouTube that can bring you inspiration. However, there's a whole lot more people out there than just me, and you need to find someone who speaks to you, someone who inspires you and whose style of art is something you want to copy or emulate. Copy. It's a thing. Like, that's how I started, and I think that's how you should start. We find it's like by copying someone else, you start to get a feel for what you're doing. And then you start to practice, and through lots of practice, you can start creating your own designs. Now, some people can right off the jump create their own designs. I didn't have that ability, and so I was copying other people. Whatever works for you is what you need to do. Zero judgment. But in my books, I have 3 books. One that focuses on just horseshoe art. There's 30 projects in that. One that focuses on silverware animals. Again, 30 projects, and these are step-by-step with clear and close-up pictures. And the third one is how to make scrap metal art. And that's just using random pieces that you have laying around your shop, hopefully, or someone else's shop, ask permission first, or the scrap yard, that you can take and put those things together. Now, subject matter, when it comes to art, I highly recommend, and I feel like you'll probably be drawn to do this without my encouragement, is to create stuff that really makes you happy. Because at the end of the day, art is really about serving our souls, and it's about expression of our soul. It's expression of our happiness. If you don't like dogs, which you should, because dogs are awesome, but if you don't like dogs, then don't weld dogs. If you like words, then you can use tools and make words. You can just find a subject matter that makes you really happy, and dive into that and find things that that speak to you in that arena. Now, as you're getting started making metal art, you are going to want to practice, and you're going to need to have patience with yourself. These are 2 exercises. These are 2 exercises for me. Look at the practice was easy for me. I just was obsessed, and still am obsessed with creating metal art. However, the patience with myself as I'm learning is the best gift that I have given myself. So as you're on this amazing learning journey, and I am 19 years into welding and 11 years into being a full-time artist, I still practice, I still play, and I'm having much more patience with myself and understanding my process today. But that comes with time. So as you are a beginner, as you're getting started, please practice patience with yourself and practice welding. Finding your niche as an artist, and niche I think just means subject matter. So as you go along and as you're learning, you're going to start creating your own designs. And that's something where you go from an apprentice to, and I'm not going to say a master, but just a more practice apprentice. I'm still an apprentice. But you will find your niche, you'll find your voice, your style. Some people love animals, and that's their whole subject matter is animals. Some people love faces from here to here. Some people just love hands. It's just, you will in time, and maybe you know it from the beginning. I didn't. I just knew I needed to make art. I had no idea what it was going to look like. But as you go along in your journey, you'll start to see what you're really drawn to. Magical creatures or angels, or name it, right? It's just such a fun journey, but it is part of your journey as an artist to find your niche, find what you're good at, find what you are really drawn to do, find that thing that makes your soul sing, and then spend as much time as you can working in that arena. Are you a business or a nonprofit? Now, not everyone who gets into metal art wants to be a full-time artist, and not everyone wants to sell art. However, you might already know, and if you don't, something to look at is, do you want to sell your art, or do you want to just make it for yourself for a soul expression? Do you want to make gifts for friends? There is definitely a huge component to selling art. So knowing what you want to do will help you make the decisions and how you want to navigate, whether you're going to brand market and sell stuff, or if you're just going to, for yourself at home, make art. Selling my art has been the most difficult component of being a full-time artist. And I will tell you this, and this is just such a personal journey for each person, because selling art is, in my experience, directly related to self-esteem, like in the pricing of your art, completely and directly connected with self-esteem. The more you value yourself, the more you value your time, the more you value your skills, the more money you're willing to put on your art. And there is a formula for selling art. I have another video on here on how to price your art. Highly recommend that if you're an artist to go find that video. If I can find it, I'll link it into the description so that it's easier for you to find. Let me make your job easier for you. However, that aspect or component of being a business owner has been the biggest hurdle for me. However, it has been the area of most growth for me. Where I've grown the most is in where I started and how I'm like where I am today. We're talking 6-figure sculptures. And I started with $5 spoon rings and $5 keychains like that I've made out of bicycle chain. So today selling 6-figure sculptures, which is just effing profound, pardon my language. Never in a billion years would I have imagined myself being here. But in order to get here, I've had to grow myself, grow my self-esteem, grow my mindset, and be willing to see myself and the skills that I have gained and how unique, there's nothing else like these in a whole wide world. Like there will never be, no matter how hard I try, I can never copy this or that. I mean, I can get close, but you're talking one of a kind. So as you're creating art, another component to it is availability. So I can teach you how to make a star-shaped bicycle chain keychain, and if there are thousands of people that can make that, the price on that is going to be probably between $5 and $10. Now, it's the uniqueness in your art is what's going to drive your price up, but it's also in your name. And this is something I did not understand in the beginning, is that by growing yourself as an artist, by growing yourself into a brand, by branding yourself, that you actually get to sell your name also as an artist. My last client, which was Burger King, they not only paid me for my sculpture, but they also paid me for my name, to use my name in their marketing. And that has been a humongous bonus that I didn't know in the beginning. I'm telling you now so that you know it in the beginning, so that you can start now in building yourself as a brand, as an artist. And now one of my books is focused completely on branding, marketing, and selling art online. The brand component of that book single-handedly, besides there's email marketing, or not email, but there's social media marketing in there too that is huge and been a huge component. But that creating myself into a brand has been a tremendous bonus for me. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, please ask in the comments, because I am going to be creating more videos like this and would love to share with you exactly how I'm doing that. You can get my book, The Artist's Guide to Branding, Marketing, and Selling Art Online. Even if you don't want to sell online, that brand part of that is just huge. It's absolutely huge for yourself as an artist. You can get copies on my website, BarbieTheWelder.com. When it comes to selling your art, you have so many different options. And I'm pretty sure I've sold art in every single way that one can. From setting up a booth at an event to setting up a little table or a wall in a local craft show. I have sold in several art galleries, and now I just completely sell online. Each way of selling, and you might pick several, and in the beginning I actually was selling in 3 different ways. However, it's like what's right for you is right for you, and I suggest you try different things and see what works, and you will settle on what's right. So in setting up events, you have to find the event, you have to pay for the event up front, and then you have to travel to the event. You also have to make sure, and hopefully, that it's a well-established event that people have marketed and will bring people into. Selling, no matter where you are or how you do it, is a numbers game. You have to have eyes on the prize. And just because I've got this and I've made it, it doesn't mean that there is a buyer today for it. Everything sells eventually. I've learned this. However, in the beginning, you need to sell probably as fast and often as possible. So for me, I was mass producing art, and I was setting up at events. I also had a table set up in like a local craft store where I would pay a monthly fee in one, and then the other one I would pay a percentage of what I was earning. So 2 places locally. And then I traveled up and down the East Coast and lived in the back of my truck for a little bit, and like would spend 4 days welding and then 3 days traveling and selling, and it was a lot and a means to an end. However, as I moved along, I really, really wanted to create the one-of-a-kind art. And so I started to teach myself how to sell online. I did it first through Etsy, and then later on moved everything over to my website. If you want to sell online, I really just in the beginning would recommend a website, because that goes in with the branding, and you're driving the traffic to your website. And there's actually a lot of value in that, way more than I'm going to talk about here, but there's just a lot of value in that. I've sold art in art galleries, and that has an amazing aspect to it where if you are accepted into an art gallery, they have clients for you. They already know what they're looking for, and if you're accepted into one, like, you're it. However, they take 35 to 50% of what the value or what you're selling your art for. And so if that's acceptable to you, then huzzah, because 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So in the beginning, I was selling in several art galleries and really enjoy it. Today, I sell strictly online through my website. And if you're looking for available sculptures, go check it out. Go see what I've done. Now, I learned how to do my own website. I do all my own stunts. However, you might not want to take the time to do that. For me, I just love to create. I love design. I don't know if it even matters what it is. I love the mental process of creating. So my website is done by me. If you don't want to take the time to do that, go get you someone who can do that. Find an artist who that's their passion, and that you can then go and support them. Maybe you figure out a percentage thing. There's so many different ways, and bartering for an artist is like to barter for services. I love to barter. It's been a lot of fun, and it helped me really move myself ahead. Find yourself a win-win where everybody feels really good walking away from it. So like I'm selling online, like that's it. Like there's just a lot of different ways, and you actually might find that there's other ways like eBay or auctioning something off. I've given away a lot of sculptures as ways to, like, I must create this, and so in order to create this, I'm going to give it away, and it's allowed me it's allowed me to really just build an empire. So your technique or your ways of selling things, like, you'll find what's right for you. Like, just because something didn't work for me doesn't mean it's not right for you. I did very, very much love the community aspect and the social aspect of setting up and selling at events. However, you're also at the mercy of the weather. There's a lot of travel involved, which I love to travel, but I found personally that I love to vacation when I'm traveling and not doing it for work. It was a lot of work. Got me where I am, and there might be a progression for you the way there was for me. However, if you're like, when you make up your mind about something, you say it's this, it's success or death, then you will find a way to make it happen. And I personally find that by pushing ourselves and putting ourselves in position, it brings out a level of creativity that just completely serves ourselves. So however you choose to sell, find what's right for you and just go all in on it. You don't need to know where you want to go as an artist. You only need to answer that urge, that call to create. Get yourself started. Keep your craftsmanship first. Be patient with yourself as you're learning, and just work each day to improve yourself, just little baby steps. And you will find that over time that you will create for yourself something that is way more magnificent than I could ever put into words or you could ever imagine. Where my art has taken me, who I've grown myself into through this journey, who I've been able to work with and who I've been able to spend time with is beyond my wildest dreams. My client list, wow. But more than anything else is the fact that today I've grown myself into a human being who loves and respects himself. And it wasn't like that in the beginning. This journey of being an artist, of being a creative human being, it is just more profound than I can express. It is just such a gift for myself And it's turned into something that, like, for me to be able to have a platform to be able to teach and to inspire others, like never in a billion years did I imagine that to happen. I'm so excited for you and for what you're going to create. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will be continuing this journey in teaching and would love to answer any questions you have. If there's anything you want to learn that's more specific, let me know and I will do my best to cover those subjects. Be excellent to yourself, be excellent to each other, stay true, live free, y'all. I believe in you.